Hello, I'm Stacia Culp, and I'm your trusted real estate advisor.
My name's Paul Olbrantz. I'm with Clear2Close Mortgage Brokers.
I'm Danielle Olbrantz, Clear2Close Processors.
And the reason we're here today is I have gotten a lot of questions from clients about this whole black box. What is the mortgage process all about? And so I found the two best people in Marin County to help us answer all those questions.
The three best people.
The three. All right, let's get into it.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into it. That's
Right.
perfect.
Yeah. What are our questions of the day?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest questions I get asked is when I recommend you guys,
Yeah.
they want to understand how you're different than the bank that they're going to go to. And do you actually tailor every loan to the client's specific situation?
Yeah. Paul, you want to take a shot at that one?
Yeah, I do. I think the biggest advantage in working with us is we're brokers, but I think more importantly, and by the way, what a broker is we have the ability to go to multiple banks to find you the best rate. But that's actually not the best thing that we, right? That's not the best part of it.
It's a great one, though.
It is a very good one, and you'll feel the savings. But truly, why you'd want to reach out to us is we take our 20 years of experience, and in our first conversation, we call it a hopes and dreams conversation. We're not going to talk about applications, credit pulls, get your documentations. We are going to ask probably 10 questions, and with those 10 questions, we are going to be able to put a plan in place, either for the short term or long term, for you to be a successful home buyer in this market.
Right. Yeah, and actually you undersold our experience a little bit. We're at year 25,
No, we're
but I am on year 25 actually,
It's
officially
too hard
this
to
year.
believe.
It is too
Yeah.
hard to believe. But that definitely plays a factor
Yeah.
as well, right? I mean, not only are we shopping multiple lenders and finding the best fit, right? So if you're going into a bank, you're getting one set of bank's criteria, one set of rates, one set of guidelines, one set of programs. And we have not only all of the banks, but we also know where to put them, which is really critical. And that only comes with experience of doing hundreds and hundreds of loans.
Yeah, and the scary thing is because of that refi boom we just went through, that brought in tons of people to do mortgages, because simply all you had to do was answer the phone, say yes, and
Yeah. Would you
and
like a
push your
2%
loans.
rate? Yes, please.
You would be surprised at how many loan officers today have done less than 10, 15 loans in their entire life. And the general rule is you have to do 300 loans before you can become a loan officer, because you think giving a loan is simple, but the rules to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are probably this thick.
Yeah, you've had scenarios come up that you don't know to expect along the way. There are literally thousands of pages of guidelines, and as you get through it, you know what things to find out up front. You know what to uncover. And you know how to do all of that before someone is in contract, so that they have the best experience once they are. Right? I mean, that's what it really is all about. Is we want them to enjoy buying their house.
Right. Well, I don't know if you remember how I ended up getting your contact information. So I had a client who was on the final stages of their loan process. We had removed all of our contingencies, and it was a small local bank. And I was calling them every day, just making sure that we're still on schedule to close. We're still on schedule to close. And then 3 days before we were supposed to close, they're like, "Oh, we can't do it."
Yeah.
So I called every realtor I could think of. Who else, who's a miracle worker that can get us out of this situation? And Paul came up, and did he come and save the day? Both Paul and Danielle absolutely saved the day, and we were able to close.
Yeah.
In
I
record
would love
time.
to say that that's a one-off scenario that we get a loan from another company that doesn't pull together.
Right.
It's often very late in the game, but it's not. It happens several times a year that we get something that is closable. It's doable. They just missed something. They didn't set it up properly. It it really is all about knowing where to go, how to structure it, how to put it together, and how to set somebody up for success.
Yeah.
Right, and also just a lot of people don't know, just kind of piggybacking off that, Danielle's Fannie Mae's rules are like this, but other companies like big banks or retail and stuff like that, they have their own rules on top of the rules.
Yeah.
And so just because somebody says no over here doesn't mean somebody doesn't want to say yes over here. So it's really important I'm going to plug brokers here, to work with a broker.
Absolutely.
Because we have the banks with all the different
choices.
Yeah. We have someone that says no here, but we have someone that says yes here.
Yeah. It's like walking into a shopping mall.
Right.
You can go to one store or you can have access to all of them right there. Yeah.
Right.
You might find the shoes you like at the other one.
The shoes. That's awesome.
Well, and one of the other reasons I love working with you guys is if you can't provide a good solution, you will say, hey, we can't do it.
Yeah,
that's true.
And we'll always be upfront and honest, and not waste anybody's time, which is huge. Yeah. And so I always
have a good outcome.
Yeah, I always feel very comfortable having you work with my clients because I know it's going to be successful.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the other question that I get asked all the time is, do I really need to get pre-approved ahead of time? And they feel like it's going to be this big, arduous process, and they just want to look at houses, and they want to find the house. And one of the challenges with that, from my perspective, is that the last thing that I want is for a client to fall in love with a house, and then we're not competitive because we haven't gotten pre-approved, and offers are due the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. Or all those stacks of guidelines that come up, and then it ruins their experience. So just for their own experience, they're going to go through the exact same steps either way. You might as well pace it out a little bit and do some of it up front and not have to worry about those things. Gives us the opportunity to uncover some of those challenges that we need to structure differently.
Well, and one of the challenges that we were faced with recently in a situation, which of course you rose to the occasion and made it happen, was stock income.
Yeah.
RSU.
Yeah, restricted stock income.
Right, right. Yeah. And I think in our area here we have a lot of executives that have that income, and it's shall I call it a floating situation?
It is. It's a challenge. One of the challenges with all mortgages in general is, each lender has their own set of rules or guidelines on how things are calculated. So a client might come to us saying, I make X, Y, Z, but a lender calculates it differently. And we would never expect a client to know those ins and out details of things. And so it can be very helpful if we help them uncover that ahead of time and go through that process.
Right.
And it's not just restricted stock income. There's bonus income and commission income.
Right. And they're all calculated a little bit differently. And I think one of the things that I recently learned is that you really can't start that process until you're in contract. So it's not something you can do light years ahead of time.
Right. Well, restricted stock income specifically, part of how it gets calculated is based on the 210-day moving average of the stock price. So
that makes sense.
That's going to change, right? Stock market changes daily. That's going to change daily. And there's a lot of things that the employer has to provide. It can definitely be an extra level. Yeah. But you don't always need it. So that's also the first step is like, do we even need this income? Maybe we don't need it.
One of the other challenges that we have seen together is insurance. And that, addressing that up front and making sure that we start that process, because we've got some challenges getting homeowners insurance right now.
Yeah. And I know Paul's doing a little bit up front on that, right?
We do a lot. Actually, could we go back just one step about the pre-approval process? Is I think it's important to understand what a pre-approval is not. It's not a commitment, right? It's not an obligation. It just gives you the price to admission to have a competitive offer. Let me share some other things that really come up. Is online calculators are, I would say 90% of them are wrong how they calculate property taxes, homeowners insurance. Because remember, in each state, property taxes are treated differently than in California. So if you're working with an out-of-state lender, they may be giving you payments based off the seller's property taxes, which, by the way, may be $1,000 a year, which is not uncommon. My grandparents, right? Yeah. Whereas when you buy $1 million house and plus, that property tax goes from $1,000 automatically to a 1.25%
$1,000 a month, right? All of a sudden,
to $1,000 a month. So if you're looking at payments saying, oh, that's in my budget of, say, $4,000, which sounds ridiculous, but let's just work with it. But you're going to expect your payment to go a lot higher. And to find that out afterwards, whereas if you just would have had a 10, 15-minute conversation,
Yeah.
Well, and make sure that you're looking at the right price of house that just fits. Even if you can
Your
qualify,
budget,
you want to make sure it fits what you're expecting.
Right.
It's very rare. I hate to say this, but it's very rare, and I don't mean this to any disrespect to anybody, but it's very rare that people have all the accurate information when they do their own research online.
Well, and sometimes even not. I mean, I had a recent scenario where somebody came and they said, I've been fully pre-approved, but they're not in the area and my agent really wants me to work with somebody local.
Right.
And I went through the process and they actually had not been pre-approved.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
boy.
had not provided tax returns for their self-employed business. They had filled out some basic steps, but they hadn't actually done, and we uncovered things that unfortunately were challenges that affected what they could and couldn't do.
Right.
But why not know that before you get into
in.
contract on
Absolutely.
the house of your dreams?
Right.
You know, I mean,
Right.
that's critical.
And I think the last thing too, though, is people look at their credit score from their banks,
Yeah.
right? So but what people don't know is that's a Vantage credit score, and that is not a credit score that we're going to pull.
They're
It's
just different.
always going to be different, and I hate to say it's usually lower.
Yeah.
And so by getting pre-approved up front, if there's something on your credit that we can improve, because the reality is the better the credit score, the better the rate. That's
Right.
just what it is.
Yep.
And if we're able to say pay off a credit card down $500, but that's going to save you an eighth in interest rate, that's crazy to wait, to the last minute.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. Planning.
planning,
Yeah.
hopes and dreams. There you go.
That's true.
So what other gotchas have you seen? We can always talk about the ones, don't extend more credit while you're in contract.
Yeah.
Don't go and buy a car.
$100,000 boat.
Right.
Had
Boat.
that happen.
Yes,
Yeah, we
yes,
did.
Yes.
Still closed, but it wasn't as fun as
Right.
it could have been on
Right.
closing day when we were tracking those things.
Right.
Other big things I think that come up, moving money around is a huge
Yeah.
one.
Right.
People come to us and think that it's going to make their lives easier if they combine all of those savings
Right.
accounts at various different banks into one place. It's fine, but it does create extra paperwork for them. We have to track all of that movement, and then it ends up giving them more work than if they had just kind of left everything in one
Right.
place. Obviously not taking out any new debt, not quitting your job. That happened
jobs.
too. Not
Changing
being in
jobs from salary to like commission only.
Yeah, that can be challenging.
Challenging. It's over. Yeah.
We're being optimistic, but it can be tough. Not moving money around, not taking out any new debt, not buying a new car. What else? There's some kind of big ones. Not buying any other real estate. I've actually had that happen too, where they've got like another transaction going out of state and they don't tell us about it. Not telling your mortgage loan officer about everything. We're like the doctor that you really need to fully disclose to, because it does come up. It will be found.
Yeah.
But it's always easier
gives
to
you a
address it
chance
up
to
front.
address
Like just
it.
tell us everything we need to know, and then we'll help you decide what is important and what's not
Right.
important. But
Right.
don't. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, I didn't want to tell you about that because I didn't want you to ask more questions."
Right.
Oh, that's fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the other questions that I get asked, once we get into contract and they're like, so I'm pre-approved, so we're done with the mortgage process, right? So now all we're going to do is wait for escrow to close.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about the process? We get the ratified contract, and then from that from that point, what's transpiring between that and close of escrow?
Lots.
Yeah.
Lots and lots and lots. I mean, I think initially Paul goes over rates and
Yeah, I think the
rate
first
locks.
24. I think you'd agree with this, Danielle. Then I think after this comment, it's going to be pretty much your side, right? But the first 3 days are crucial.
Yeah.
For the success of the loan long term.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I think there's a really important things to know. The first 3 days, you should get interest rates to choose from. Yeah. You have to get a homeowner's insurance quote. Mm-hmm. You may not necessarily get it closed with them, but you still need to get one.
Yep. Start working on it.
Updated loan documents depends on how old your pre-approval, right? A credit report.
Yep. Being available to sign loan disclosures, things like that. There's a lot of just kind of extra steps at the beginning.
I think it's really important though, is that one of the biggest things that delays people is that we send out disclosures and they sit on them, they don't sign it.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to review it, ask questions right away, but get it signed over, because number one, it's not permanent. It's going to change throughout the loan, but that allows us to put your loan in process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the things that people may not realize is that during the loan process, there are several different government wait periods that we are required to have, and they all have different stages attached to them. So getting some of those things started early is really important.
Yeah.
So even if, a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I'm still doing investigations on the property, so I want to wait on the loan. Right. It's like, no, let's keep everything moving all simultaneously. We're all driving on the same freeway. If we need to change lanes, we will, but for now, we're all driving in the same direction. So keeping everything moving, following directions, getting everything in quickly, that first 3 to 5 days is definitely very critical.
Right.
From there, it should get a little bit easier, especially if they've been fully pre-approved.
Right.
It will really be just updating a few things, getting it into underwriting, getting those next steps done. But during the contract period, also not traveling without making sure that we've addressed that up front. A lot of people don't realize that they'll need to sign final papers with a notary. So they'll need to be physically present before the closing.
Right.
Some states do it differently. Some states you all get together on closing day and sign right then and there. And so people don't tell us that they have travel planned. So making sure that if travel planned, it's not out of the country, hopefully.
Yeah.
And if it is, that we all know about it well in advance.
I think, though, we can ask more questions about...
No.
Okay. I think what do you think, Danielle, is the biggest... people have the hardest part with the loan process? I mean, I think it's assets.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a little bit about that, but I think it's really important.
Yeah. I mean, I think, if I'm talking about the most obnoxious part of the mortgage process, it's assets, and it's tracking assets.
Yes.
People kind of go, well, I'll have all of the money, and it'll, I'm going to send it to the title company, so why do you care?
Yeah.
Well, I don't personally, but we have to, right? It's part of the guidelines. The lender needs to know we have to do it. If it were up to me personally, I don't care whether you move money between your checking and your savings account, but the lender does, so we have to follow their rules. So tracking assets can really be the item that causes the most work.
What about cash? Cash is king.
Yeah, no,
not
in
loans.
Mortgages. Yeah,
cash doesn't exist.
Cash actually, it does not exist. You're allowed a very small allotment of cash, deposits that go into your account that don't get flagged. But after that very small threshold, if you put any money into your bank account, we have to track where it came from, and cash is not acceptable. It can't be tracked. It can't be used. And then also gift funds, if they're getting gifts from family members, telling us about that up front and not making the transfers themselves. Let us direct traffic on when and where to send deposits. If it goes to the title company, it's significantly easier. If it goes by wire, it's even easier. Assets are by far probably the biggest area where you can control the success of a transaction. Yeah. Fine. Although when we bought our house, I did all the stuff we weren't supposed to do. I started moving everything around, and then I kind of went, oh, wait a minute. That caused me more work. But at least I know the work I needed to do.
Yep.
Yeah. Are there any situations that what's a really smooth transaction versus a bumpy one? What can somebody do right?
I hate to say this, and maybe this may not be, but they follow direction. I think, and what I mean by that is that if we ask for bank statements, give us the bank statements. Don't give us page 1
or screenshots.
Right? We ask for pay stubs. It's not a screenshot on your phone. I mean, they literally have to be the document.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yeah,
they're
because
very particular about the format.
They're very particular about the format.
Yeah. And it's all fraud prevention.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all designed to make sure that we have.
I mean, it makes sense when I see some of the documents come over. It's like, well, yeah, I can see on the screen here the one page of the 20.
Yeah.
that you sent, because we know how many pages, right? It says 1 of 20, that you have enough for the down, but what the lender's really looking for is the stuff behind that first page.
Yeah.
They want to make sure
even that page that's marked blank.
They know, that is
the hardest page to get in mortgages. It is
you have to send that page in.
It's a process. Our nemesis is that intentionally paged, left blank. Like, oh man.
And then on top of that, if you don't understand what we're asking for, just ask.
Yeah.
Because I see, this is a common thing I see a lot, is this should be good enough. And for us it is, but as you said, but for the lender, they're not going to sign off on it.
Yeah.
And then we become the bad guy or girl.
It's interesting because, and I think I told you this, the way I have described it to a lot of my clients is, lenders are a little bit picky. If they want it on pink paper in a Times Roman font of 24 and italicized, even though that's not, that doesn't make any sense. You want to send it on blue paper. Blue paper isn't going to work.
And here's the thing, though, right? And let's use that example. I love that analogy. So you can take a little bit of time and send it in the font and the pink paper, and it's going to go through like that, right? If you send on the blue paper, it doesn't mean it won't go through.
Right.
But it's going to be a brutal...
it just creates friction. You're creating friction.
It's delays, it's frustrations.
Right.
So I think definitely people who
put it on the pink paper.
Can follow specific, directions and a process, right? Because we have gotten very, very good at creating a process where if we're asking for something specific, it's for a reason. It's not unintentional that we're asking for something, and we know if we ask for those things up front, it'll make everything smoother later. And then I think just the other thing is, if they're not understanding something along the way, like raising their hand and saying, "Hey, can you please call me and walk me through this?" Because I think sometimes people just get frustrated behind the scenes and we don't know it, and they don't know what, if you have questions, just ask. Like, that's what we're here for.
I think another one, as we're talking, that really gets people is if they have a small business, like a corporation that comes up on Schedule E, right, that they don't even partake in, and it's like a $10 loss. And we need documentation on it. They don't even know about it. It's...
That's where getting pre-approved is really awesome, because then we'll know all of those things up front. We'll give them a list of like, hey, here are the things that we don't necessarily need like today, but we would help you to make things smoother later. And then they can work on those things when they have time.
Well, and it
not in a 21-day close.
And it always comes to the point where, when you fall in love with the house, how can you be competitive? And, if we can close quicker because you've done all your homework up front, then that's going to be huge. And so, it all comes down to really getting our clients what they need and what they want. And if we can be proactive, it's going to be a whole lot better. So one other question, supplemental tax. Can you cover a little bit of that?
I can try. That's almost a whole episode on its own. So very briefly, every California property gets reassessed eventually for the purchase price, but that can sometimes take a long time. So in that interim, which can be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years sometimes, depending on the county, they are getting a regular tax bill from the county assessor that is whatever the previous owner paid, and then they're getting a supplemental bill for the gap difference, of what they should be paying and what it is, and it just takes a while. I don't know why it takes a while. If they can issue the supplemental bill, I don't know why they can't just roll it all together, but
they don't.
That's not how the county works. And so if somebody has an escrow account where their mortgage is paying their taxes and insurance, people assume that all taxes are being paid. Those supplemental bills do not get paid automatically. California is really one of the only states where a supplemental bill is like an automatic thing and it's expected. Other states' supplemental bills are one-time things that just are new, and so they're not paid automatically. We do build the account anticipating that bill. So generally speaking, as long as you're watching your mail for the supplemental bill and then contacting us right away, we can help get that bill paid from the escrow account. And that's something we help with. But they have to let us know about it because we don't know about it. And I think where that gets dangerous is if they miss it
Right.
Then all of a sudden the lender goes to pay the next tax bill. They realize they have too much in the escrow account, and they send the client a refund check. And if the client doesn't, again, ask questions and go, hey, I got this refund check, then they may realize that they didn't pay their supplemental bill and they got this refund, and it just gets a little
because they thought it was handled.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, that's just get us involved early. We do help with that process for all of our clients.
Yeah. That's great.
Call that guy.
Yeah.
He'll help. Basically, anytime you get a tax bill, call Paul. Call Paul.
Yeah.
Call Paul.
Verify it initially, and it's gone after 2 years. You don't have to worry about it.
So is there anything that I missed?
Yeah,
Something
I
else?
think the one thing that I think is really overlooked is after you close on your home.
Right. Well, that's why I brought the supplemental tax up, is because that's one of the things that
supplemental and stuff like that. But also, just been in this industry for 25 years. Thought it was 20. I just got aged 5 years.
Sorry.
Is that we've seen a lot of good things, and unfortunately, we've seen a lot of unfortunate events. And one thing that we're really strong with our clients, and I want to portray this, is that you have to make sure that now that you have this asset, this home, right, but you also want to protect it. And you have children, and you have these $600,000 mortgages and stuff like that. And we have to ask the tough questions. What happens if something happens to one of the borrowers, one of their clients, one of the family members, unexpectedly? And so I always recommend having a trust, getting life insurance, having a financial plan. The trust, when Danielle and I sat and did our trust, I don't know if your experience was the same. I thought it was going to be really easy, but the questions asked, I couldn't believe it, and we never talked about it. And furthermore, when I left there, I felt relief because although it was hard conversations, but at least now we know our wishes will be granted with our home and especially our children.
Kids, all of that. I mean, kind of in line with that, right, is, working with like a local expert team is a better level of service than I think you're going to get if you kind of just log online and try to get, there's tons of options now for mortgages. Anybody can apply for something online. But I think you'll have a better experience all the way around.
Absolutely.
Working with a great real estate agent, working with mortgage brokers. You get it, it's like doing your TurboTax versus having a CPA who can help you through it.
And save you money.
Yeah, except the CPA is cheaper and you'll save more in the end.
Yeah.
But those relationships, I think people really underestimate those relationships. I mean, I know there are transactions we've worked on together that they would only have been accepted if it weren't for the fact that you had relationships with the other agent, that they knew what we are, and that we can get it done quickly. I mean,
absolutely.
Sometimes it's like we all come together and go, okay, let's strategize how to build a team to get our clients what they need and want.
Absolutely.
And people, I think, don't always fully understand the importance of that. So.
And that we continue to help. So I have clients that, funny story, they bought last month and they're remodeling, so they haven't moved in, but they have a koi pond with turtles, and the turtles got out, and what am I doing?
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. I'm hunting on the street looking for the turtles.
Stacia is officially adding turtle wrangler to her list of services. So
that's awesome.
She can't do that for everybody.
No, only
there's
special.
only X amount of time for turtle wrangling.
So,
of course, you go above and beyond. Always. But people do overlook the amount of just extra hand-holding that they can get using local experts instead of just trying to throw it all together themselves.
And we're absolutely still there after the transaction.
Yes, we are.
I'm not going anywhere. 25 years in.
Hey.
Well, thank you very much.
Stacia.
If you can't think of anything else, I think we've done a really good job of, really answering a lot of the questions that at least I know my clients have had in the past.
Absolutely.
And so, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.